Okay, we'll call the Budget and Finance Committee to order Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. The purpose of the meeting is to review department heads' budget. The first on the agenda is discussion floor. Since we don't, there's no way we have any discussion from the floor. One reminder, though, that Cheryl needs by Friday any changes that you amendment changes, Cheryl?
Yes.
She needs them by Friday. She says she will not be happy if she gets them on Monday.
I didn't say that.
Okay. First, departmental budget review will be the public health. Sarah.
Good evening, thank you.
So would you like to start by reviewing or talking, or what would you?
I actually, Chairman, have nothing to say. I was just prepared to take questions.
Okay, you're done.
Cheryl's going to lose on the over-under.
Page 19 is public health.
Line 1111, overtime pay, we went from 12,881 down to 250. No expectation of overtime?
So every year our overtime line is only $250. That's what we allot. With the pandemic, obviously, we went much over that last year, but we've always just allotted $250, and then if we need to transfer money into that line item, we typically do. With the COVID grant, which you'll see on page... it's under other, what did Sean do? That COVID grants on page 22, under special costs. If you look at that, you'll see that
What line?
page 22 is the very last grant.
Okay,
Yeah. So that COVID grant money, we have allocated that as special costs because it can be used for a variety of things. There's no allocation of how much has to be used for overtime, how much has to be used for staff, PPE, etc. So we are using that as one lump sum to then divvy out into where it's needed to pay those line items to not run in the
So the
red.
157,945, that's a number you already know?
It is.
Your expectation?
Yep, so we received all of our grant funding for that at this point. We did get word that we'd be getting another $177,000. So we're expecting that line item, once that money is given to us, to change quite a bit because, as you know, 157 and 177, it'll be about 320 around there.
Just quickly, there's several areas throughout your budget where you pick up 15% of senior account clerk, for instance, typist, 15% in early intervention. What are you sharing those with? You off the top of your head?
Yep, so I can tell you. So the business manager, part of that salary, and one of the clerk typists are shared with the mental health budget because we are a combined department. So we share and offset some of those county revenues out of state funding from the mental health budget. And then the children with special health care needs, if you look, part of that salary is grant paid for because as the coordinator of children's services, the grants do allow us to pay for administrative costs.
Thank you. That's it.
Sarah, on the money we get back from the federal government, the state, do you have a max? What we?
Yes, so our cap for Article 6 is $500,000. Because we're a partial service county, that's the max we can bill to the state is $500,000. That's our base grant. Anything that we bill for state aid over that only gets reimbursed to us at 36 cents on the dollar. So that's why we try not to bill state aid. We use up our grant money. So we always take our state aid and use that $500,000 cap, and then where we can, we fill in any gaps with grants. However, some of our grants are not state aid reimbursable. So for example, with our public health preparedness grant, we have to use that grant money before we can then charge it to state aid. So there are some grants that are reversed, where you have to use grant money before you can charge to state aid. But 500,000 is our max.
I recognize that.
Yes,
And you paid how much over that?
36 cents on the dollar.
Do we have a lot of, that's in that category, or do we?
We don't, because we really do try to use our grants, and I'm pretty frugal and fiscally tight with certain things that we spend on, so I really try not to go over that $500,000 cap. And if we have a large expense, I can typically find a grant that will allow us to do a budget modification, which means move money from one line item to another line item. So if we need a new computer equipment, our preparedness grant, for example, they are very lenient in allowing us to buy new computer equipment to run our programming. So we can shift money within our grants so that we really try not to tap into that state aid, because 36 cents, we only get that 36 cents back, and then the county has to pick up the other portion of that.
The only reason I ask the question is because we hear a lot of, well, it's grant, or not grant, it's state aid, it's state aid, it's state aid, but the question is always is, they don't just open the sky and just say, here you go. And that's
Not
what you
at all.
want.
No, and they cap us at 500,000, and then our grants, most of our grants that we have are mandated by New York State public health law, so they have to provide us with a lead grant, they have to provide us with emergency preparedness. So some of those grants that we have are funded per public health law, so the state can't just come in and take them. They can cut them, but they can't take them completely away.
Martin?
Are reimbursements coming in at a normal rate, or have you seen them slow down?
So we have been billing as we normally do. However, at the beginning of the year, so January, February, March, I still had not received reimbursements from the previous full fiscal year. And then all of a sudden, we got a lot of money coming in at one time. With our mental health budget, it's a little bit different. They front load the money 4 times a year, so I don't have to worry about that. So it's not reimbursements, but with reimbursements, the state is behind. To date, we are waiting on Q2 vouchers, which we're not that far into Q3 going into 4. So this is about average where we're at.
Yeah, we used a vendor to help out with the immunizations.
Yes.
Where are we finding this in your budget?
That will come under our COVID funding. So again, back to page 22, that 157,000. Again, this budget was prepared long before I knew that we were getting the additional 177. So we will be recognizing that funding come January. So $100,000 of that 177 that we are getting will be dedicated solely to the Calderwood contracts to pay for those services that we need for vaccine clinics and booster clinics. So that will no longer be a county share. And I did discuss that with the county executive, so you should be getting a resolution shortly on that.
Anything else?
Pretty clean there, Sarah.
Thank you.
Monumental changes. Keep up the great work,
Thank you.
especially during the very difficult times in the world.
Can I ask one more question? It really doesn't have anything to do with the budget. Ask.
Do you guys perform audits regularly?
Yes, so actually, the clerk of the legislature and the county auditor 4 times a year come and audit all of our records, all of our charts. And I'm happy to say in the past 4 years that I've been in this position, we've never had a deficiency in any of our audits.
That's good. Do we use an outside firm to make sure that we're maximizing our reimbursements and such?
So our McGinnis system that does all of our billing for us for Medicaid, they do the audits, and I believe, is that Vanesky, Sean, or is that Bonadio?
Bonadio does our yearly audit.
Yeah, but Vanesky does our
Vanesky
McGinnis
does the
audit,
cost
yes.
allocation plan. Yes.
Yes, sorry, I get those two confused, I always forget who does what, but Vanesky does our PCG claims.
And there's no room for improvement?
I am getting
100%.
back every single dime I possibly can. And actually, come February, I will be putting up a resolution for a temporary position. I've already had a staff who will be retiring at the end of September. She's done her 30 years and is ready to retire. However, her position is not one that somebody can just walk into and pick up on the same day, and there's a lot of background checks and Medicaid checks. It's a position that will have to be approved by all of our state agencies, as well as they'll have to do a full training with Medicaid. So that position I'm hoping to start the beginning of March, resolution for February, put it up to post for March and have somebody in there for about 5-6 months training alongside Sue Ann, because she's been that person doing this job for 27 years. And I can tell you, when there's a penny to be saved, she finds a penny. The system automatically rounds everything up to the nearest dollar, and Sue Ann knocks it back down to the lowest penny. So, on any given week, it sounds silly, but she could find 20 cents of errors.
Sarah, which position is that?
That is my principal.
Principal counselor?
Yes.
You didn't budget for the inevitable need for a replacement in advance?
We didn't know that she was going to be
Oh,
retiring.
when you did that, okay.
Yes.
157,000 line.
Probably so, like.
Can I ask another question that's not related to the budget? So when you're filing for these reimbursements, is it a similar platform as other agencies that may be asking for reimbursement from Medicaid and such?
Medicaid reimbursement is Medicaid reimbursement. It doesn't matter if you're doing it in a hospital, in a public health department, in any agency. Medicaid reimbursement is Medicaid reimbursement. The timelines are the same. It's 5, 10, 15, 30, 45, 60, and 90. Those are your deadlines once the service is performed. Depending on what it is, you have 5, 10, 15, 30, 45, 60, or 90 days. That doesn't change. Medicaid is Medicaid.
Anything else, Marilyn? Thank you very much, Sarah. Next person up will be Nicole, personnel. Nicole did provide us with a handout.
I did, but I'm not going to put it up on the screen, and I promise not to talk too much.
You know what, Nicole, you can talk as long as you feel you need to talk to explain what you need to explain.
Okay, well, I will go in the same format and open it up to questions if you would like, or I can go with the format that I've done in the past. It's up to you.
What's easiest for you?
Either way,
Could I get a list of the open positions?
the open positions. Yep.
I rest my case. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what I can say is that I have budgeted very conservatively in the 3 funds that I'm responsible for. You'll see that in the A fund, you'll see it reflects the additional position that was approved via resolution. But you will not see any changes in the year over year. I try to be creative in how we budget it, but taking into consideration the funds that we absolutely need. Again, you will see, I know a lot of times, year over year, we have questions in regards to the 8850, which is in the fringe lines for hospital medical. I want to make sure that it's clear that the reason why it's lower is because that takes into consideration the employee contribution. The other, you'll see that the lines in the .4s might be a little different than they were in last year's budget, and that's primarily due to the fact that I've reallocated where some of the funds are coming through to make sure that the contracts that I have are being paid out of the correct lines. For instance, maintenance agreements. Any of the maintenance, we moved them out of certain lines and put them in an appropriate line.
I have another question.
Sure.
I'm assuming the $250,000 $50,000 in line 1125 is just a placeholder for,
It is.
thank you.
Nicole, the disability insurance, why the increase?
Well, I can, let me just do that one. The disability insurance for this year, actually, we've seen a record number of claims this year, and to the point where, at this point, we're under budget, or over budget, I should say. So that's to take into consideration that.
Okay.
Nicole, with last year, COVID, some happening, people using the telemed program. And we also increased the deductible for going to the emergency room. Have we seen a swift change in what's going on at all?
We've seen a slight change, however, COVID's not a good year to compare, because people were forced. The unanticipated benefit to COVID was that people were getting more used to using telehealth. So we actually did have 337 visits to telehealth. And you'll see in the presentation in the M Fund is that we are making and continuing our education platform and getting out to employees and letting them know how to use telehealth. But in working with MVP, we're working on new programs. One of them, which should be rolled out, is called GIA, which you might have seen the commercials on television. That will also further incentivize individuals and our members to be able to use it by offering, the proposed is a $0 copay for individuals using online health. So that'll further help us. Overall, it's going in the right direction. I think this year will be a better year to be able to gauge when we sit here next year to see the effects of the negotiations that we did, which will absolutely have a benefit in increasing those copays, and then the more education in regards to online health.
I remember just kind of hoping that once, everything opened back up again, people just didn't say, yeah, we're done with this, let's just.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot less visits at the ER. We had a lot less visits at urgent care, and a lot more visits on online health. However, with things being shut down and it was forcing people's hands, we won't really have that true picture until this year now that everything's opened back up. But I'm hopeful.
Nicole, the fringe benefits,
And the A fund?
A fund, yes. Last year's adopted budget was $11,316,000. Year to date, you're at $5,007,500. So half is what was the reason?
Yeah, so there is lag in billing for medical. So that would be the reason.
Okay.
We're about, if you look in the slide presentation, if you go forward, I'm sorry, I didn't put numbers on the page, but if you look, you'll see an Excel spreadsheet. You go a little bit further. Yep. So for 2021, we're about halfway there. So we're finished with quarter 2 and the billing for quarter 2 when I did this presentation. So we're on track to be around 7.1 million this year. That's barring any high cost claimants that may come in.
Okay, thank you.
In regards to the M Fund, if we're good to move on to the M Fund, I can tell you that we're continuing to put programs in place to save costs. We have put in, we did do the additional international pharmacy, which is for high cost prescriptions. We talked about it, I think we talked about it last year. It was implemented this year. And with that, with 100% participation, we're looking at about $240,000 savings on the pharmacy side. Without participation from the member, the member actually will pay the penalty, copay. So there's incentive for them to use this international pharmacy for their high-cost prescriptions that normally wouldn't be available through Canada RX. It also includes injectables, some of those typical prescriptions that you may see a lot on the commercials nowadays being advertised. The other program that we just put into place is called Smart Start, and what that is, what we were seeing with and looking with Araya, is that the high-cost claims, it could be $20,000 for a 1-month script, and medical professionals are starting these therapies with their patients, and they may only last 1 month on the prescription. They may just stop the prescription. Well, we would have paid $20,000 for that prescription, and it is wasted by the member, no fault of their own. It may just not work for that therapy, and then they've wasted their copay, and we've seen the cost and realized the cost. So the Smart Start program was just implemented. And what that does is it gives the member still their same 30-day supply, but it's still split out over a month, so they'll get 2 weeks supply. And if that 2 weeks works, and it'll be a prorated copay, if that works, then they can go back to the pharmacy and get the second half of that prescription. And then after 2 successful refills, then they can start getting the 30-day supply. So that's anticipated to save us quite a bit of money as well. So we're actively looking for ways in which to save money for both the members, our employees, and the county.
Nicolette, I know some of your positions are spread out among the 3 funds, correct?
Yes.
Looking at the A fund, which are the ones that experienced increases, if we were to add all 3 departments, funds together?
Sure.
And maybe you could just tell us what they were.
Right.
The clerk got this much more, and that's the one that's in common with all 3 funds, blah, blah, blah.
So as I said, we have the assistant, that was the resolution. We have the HR financial specialist. She is the employee in my department who handles all of human resource finances. So that position was one of the positions I targeted. And based on the responsibilities of that position, it's split out over the 3 funds, 2 of which of those funds are sought some reimbursements through the funds within the county and also through the workers' compensation plan because of the work that is done there. That person is responsible for $45 million of the county's money, singularly.
Yep.
So that's, I
That's
could
one of them.
go on for a very long time, but the other one would be the personnel assistant, the personnel associate. That is in the A fund. So there's only 2 in the A fund that received an increase.
Okay.
The personnel associate, and that was because there was a reallocation and equalization out of the grade that she is in. So it's about a $2,500 increase there.
Yep.
And then if you look into the M and the MS, you'll see the HR benefits specialist. She is also in that same grade, so she'll see the same increase.
Okay.
If you see additional money in there, they may be hitting, and you may see that countywide throughout the budget in different salary lines, they may be hitting a longevity stuff as well. So that might account for some money that might be in there or an income. Okay.
None of those that were in the first 2 are in the third?
Actually, the HR financial specialist is split out over 3.
Okay.
The personnel associate, which is only in the A fund.
Yep.
And the HR benefit specialist is only in the M and the MS.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Can we talk quickly about the workers' compensation fund? Everybody wants to hear it. This year, we've been working actively, we do quarterly reviews with our TPA triad to look at ways in which we can save money, and that's been the theme, and it will continue to be the theme. I've actively been testifying in cases on behalf of the county and our plan. In one particular case, we had a high exposure, potentially. I actually testified for 3 hours in that proceeding. And we are found to, at this point, have no liability, although we were named initially in the claim. That claim could have cost our workers' comp plan $500,000. So there's still time for appeal, but so far so good. We're also, our scheduled loss of use projections are a little bit lower than they have been in previous years. We've been actively working on trying to close some of those cases. And the other thing that we have been doing is controverting cases, absolutely reviewing the cases, controverting them when needed, and I've been actively imposing surveillance on individuals where we think that there may be an issue with a claim. Our last surveillance case saved the county $105,000. So again, we'll continue to work in trying to find ways to save money. But the only other thing I can tell you is that through COVID, we did do those unemployment claims, and I know it was something that was outstanding and pending as far as seeking the reimbursements for the unemployment that was paid out over 2020. And we did realize that in 2021 in the amount of $133,000.
Covered it all?
Did.
Nicole, go back to workman comp.
Yep.
I know we're always looking to save money, not, with different, positions. Do some counties or other counties have people in place, that go out and look at job sites and do things do we have someone that does that here, or?
We don't. We have, we don't and we do. My deputy, we have a safety committee that was suspended during COVID, is starting back up in a couple of weeks. He does go out at times, not as much as, and it's not necessarily like your typical workers' comp investigator. However, he's recently become involved in the Workers' Comp Association, in which there's more training available to be able to do that. So I can see him going out.
I think I'm more concerned about, because we cover workman comp for the entire county.
Yeah.
For lots of different municipalities, and what goes on in a lot of other places that could cost.
I think that would be a different position than that I have in my office. It's something that.
If you have any more information on something like that, I would appreciate it. Okay.
Stopgap insurance.
Stop loss, I'm glad you said that. Okay, so our stop loss, I had put in for in the M fund, the health insurance fund, about $200,000. We do not get those projections, and most of the stuff that we have here, I don't get projections by the time the budget is due. I'm okay with the insurance. The stop loss, I'm not okay with. So we went out to bid for the stop loss. Throughout the market, the increases are pretty significant. And I just had a call with our TPA as well as our insurance broker, an insurance company, and we're looking at about a $30,000 increase. So I will need to do an amendment or a resolution changing that that figure.
So in here you have 200,000?
200,000. So I don't have the final number yet because they need another month of claims before they give us the final. And even then, it's a moving target based on the claims. So they're anticipating with renewal, if we go with the initial, it's in the ballpark of an additional 30,000. There's options. You could extend. You can, add more exposure to the county. I wouldn't recommend that. Which, extending it from 350 to 375. It's only going to bring it down a little bit, but you can have multiple claims that hit that stop loss. The good news is we don't have anything lasered this time. So when it's lasered, you have somebody, a specific specific high-cost claimant, maybe at, not at a $350,000 stop loss, and maybe at $600,000 just for that particular claim. So this year we don't have that, but we do have the market, huge market increase.
Anything else? Anything else to call?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rita.
Next up, now can we go back to the sheriff?
Good evening.
Please. Sir.
The floor is yours.
So I think I just want to start out with a general statement by thanking the legislature and the treasurer and the county executive for, the support and the hard work during budget season. We know that budgets are difficult and spending taxpayer money is not an easy task. That's why we try to be very fiscally responsible. If we make a submission on our budget, it's because we truly in our heart feel that it's needed. And unfortunately, there is a cost to do business. As we continue to improve our service and garner more trust and confidence in the public, our call volume increases. The serious nature of calls this year alone has grown exponentially, which is concerning. But part of that process, I truly believe, is being a good community partner and being out there and being accessible and again, the public having confidence in the job that we're doing. And I hope that continues to improve and head in that direction. But, I think Sarah said earlier, the sheriff gets everything he wants. That's not true. I was caught in the budget. I'm on the record saying I did not get everything.
Where?
I'm free to discuss those if you want. But we understand it's difficult, There's things that were cut that certainly we would love to have. That's why we put in the budget. But if that can't happen, we understand that and we'll move forward. Budgeting is difficult for us as well because many of our items are kind of crapshoots or rely on other things, especially in the jail, right? The medical fees, the food, the overtime, the cost of transportation for inmates kind of correlates on how many inmates we have, our revenue, how many federal inmates can we house. Even on the patrol side, the overtime and the gasoline, we don't have any control over those things. So it's kind of a crapshoot when we develop this number in July and we put it out there. And we try to be as tight as we can, as close as we can, and hope that we succeed. And so far, so good. But I think we just open it up to you for questions or feedback on what we can do better.
Sure. The prisoner money. I'm just curious how the tug of war goes with the executive, on what you submit, what he submits. I mean, I see we did almost $1 million last year. I see that this year, when you sent us that email a little while ago, you're on pace for something in that ballpark again, right? Yet, as far as a budgeted line item, always good to be conservative. We are with our sales tax, blah, 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 but just curious, when you've had experience close to $1 million the last 2 years that you've done this the right way, how we arrive at you only putting in 5.25 and the executive knocking it up to 600,000. Why wouldn't it even be a little higher? And I'm sure there's a reason, I just want to understand it.
Well, when I try to calculate the budget, I am very cautious on overestimating my revenues and then coming back short. Sure, creating more of a budget problem. So
You learned that from our treasurer.
I err on the side of caution. So this year I tried to average 15 federal inmates a month.
Okay.
And, we had a very good early 2021 with the feds, but now, like today, we have 14. So if I averaged 15, I felt comfortable with that number in hopes that we could stay consistent. We might be 25, we might be 10, but over an entire year span. And then I lowballed that a little bit, just to be cautious. And I just never want to be the guy that says, I'm going to make you $750,000 and come in at 300,000 because I have no control over whether that money really comes or not.
Right.
Our doors are open and we support the United States Marshal Service and we try to do the best we can, but at the end of the day, if they don't bring them to us, we don't get that revenue.
Were the previous 2 years, that 2020 and 21, which are going to get us about $1 million based on an average of 15 too?
No, we, honestly, early on, so our first budget was in 2019 as an administration, and, we didn't really know what we were going to receive because it was very minimal to none prior. And then we had a decent year, and we talked to the United States Marshal Service, and my jail administration, the Administrative Bar Beauty understands.
We got to stop on that. The live feed is done. Excuse me.
It's still up.
I'm getting text messages that it's down.
I'm sorry, sir.
This is a required one, second.
I just thought, I don't know, I'm presuming it's because it's a public meeting, we got to make sure it's
open to the public.
open to the public.
So if you want to
Be here.
yeah, you could, yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, it's just because it's.
What do you think? All right, let's continue. Keep going.
So, my administrator, Bob Barbuti, knows that I am now trying to determine a concentrated truck-related fee based on a year's worth of federal inmates. So I've tasked him with trying to continue to keep at least 15 average. He knows that we can take many more, but, so the answer is no, early on it was not budgeted that way. That's something I kind of started this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Continuing on what Legislator Peck was talking about, what's your year-to-dates on the federal prisoners?
So I sent you a email update at the end of September 30th. We have $603,600 for federal inmates received. That's with October, November, December left. So if you want to, I don't know if we had 14 every day for the month of October, or if you want to average 14, I can do that quick math for
What
you.
was the number through 9:30?
603,600 was just the federal boarding.
So it's about 805,000.
And that's without the other, we've got 55,600 in Saratoga, 37,000 Otsego, 8,300 Schenectady. We still have inmates in our facility today from 2 of those counties, Otsego and Schenectady.
So would you be comfortable with 900,000 for the year?
In the budget for next year?
No, for the year, if you were doing projections.
For next year?
875 would be okay.
For 2022, I would be nervous about it.
No. So
For this
your
year?
projections
Oh,
at
yes.
year end 900,000?
Well, it is my hopes. I would have liked to try to get $1 million, but I don't know if I will reach it or not.
Any other questions on that?
Mark?
Before I go?
Mark?
So in years past, prior to you taking office, we've talked about increasing our rates. Do you feel that we need to increase our rates, or with the number that we're getting, the rates are okay?
I believe the rates are very sufficient, and the rates are controlled, but not controlled, but it's a negotiation process with the United States Marshal Service. And if you ask other facilities how much they're getting a day, we are still above most. Yes. So when we charge local counties, we charge between 85 and 95, depending. Like there was a time where Saratoga was in a bad spot with COVID, and sheriffs will work with other sheriffs because they know that they're in an emergency situation. We charge them $85 a day because they sent us like 24 inmates for a straight month until they cleaned out the process.
Don't we pass that by resolution, what we're charging? No? I thought we had in the past.
To my knowledge, there's never been a resolution controlling the price of inmate housing.
I know we've had discussions about it before.
I'm done with revenue.
So in the, we received a document that looks like this from the county executive's office, and it addresses the changes in each department, and I don't know if you have this with you, just wonder if you could go over those with us.
May I make a comment that just legislator Kelly? The reason we do that is because we may be in a position where we need another county to help us out. So we should be cautious about hardlining. Okay. Okay, so dispatcher title reallocated, that's the adjusted salaries for the 911 dispatchers that the county executive proposed. Everybody understands what I'm talking about there? The added deputy sheriff. So the added deputy sheriff, I put in for a new full-time deputy sheriff this year, and the reason I asked for that position is to handle traffic safety related matters. The staffing levels we have and the current call volume and the seriousness of the calls are really taking a lot of the deputy's time each and every day, and I continue to get contacted both by social media, by mail coming in, hard mail, by email, by phone calls into the office about traffic-related issues throughout the county, many speed-related, many failed stop signs, many school bus-related issues, parking lot issues with individuals, and in fact, many legislators in this room have contacted me about some of those things, along with the Board of Supervisors. And I would see a great value of a deputy sheriff assigned to traffic safety in this county to handle each and every one of those things and only respond to calls if it was a major emergency that they needed a backup or something like that. But this person's task would be, when someone calls me with a traffic-related incident, to spend time to try to resolve that issue, go out and talk to the people, come up with a plan, and maybe overall increase or decrease traffic data in this county, traffic accident data, and just do a better job. The next one is Deputy Sheriff Investigator. That's a position that I put in combined with DSS. That's going to be, if approved, a investigator assigned to DSS permanently for welfare fraud. Speaking with the District Attorney's Office, the belief there is that there is a lot of revenue out there to be recouped, and according to the Commissioner of Social Services, it's an 80% reimbursed position. So hopefully that would pay for itself. Communication assistant requested but not moved forward. That's a position that I selfishly put in for myself. I requested a $20,000 part-time appointed, non-competitive communication person for the sheriff because our social media platforms continue to grow. Our communication continues to grow with the public, and to be quite honest with you, I do it all, and it just has become a daunting task. So that was a selfish request.
So that's a part-time position?
Yeah.
Limited by hours or on call or how?
It would be, my ask was that it would be a salary position because it may be 2 o'clock in the morning, it may be a weekend, it may be a holiday. It's someone that would understand that this is what I need done to communicate with the public, and this is how we got to do it, and you may have to do it at any point, any time, so there's no set limitations. They know that they're on the hook whenever it's
seem awkward
needed.
to be able to pin
Yeah.
that down.
Jeff, I can see that position going hand in hand with the traffic safety, just with school bus safety, just different things that are going on with your traffic safety people.
Well, social media is a great platform, right? The last 4 to 5 people that we've interviewed and hired at the sheriff's office have said to us during the interview process, the reason they reached out and came to this county was because of the progressive attitude and what they've seen on social media. So it seems to be working, and it's important. And I want to expand to other platforms. Right now, we mainly focus on Facebook. And like I said, we have a smartphone app coming out, Twitter. There are things that I think we could be doing a better job on, but it's tough to keep up on all this stuff, to be quite honest with you. The correctional facility nurse, that's also the adjusted salary that the county executive proposed because we struggle with nurses and dispatchers and keeping them and getting applications for them. And the last thing was dispatcher, that's the same exact thing as the reallocated information of nurses.
Thank you.
Yes.
What was the price tag on the communication assistant?
20,000.
20,000.
Anything else for the sheriff? Good.
Any thing coming up on the condition of the jail that we should be aware of?
Yeah, well, I kind of defer, I guess, to Eric. Capital project.
Well, I can start with an overview. We just sat down and reviewed his needs and tried to pair that with the federal money as well as putting together some detail for the board for a capital project proposal. The bottom line is there's still a lot of need. The biggest, well, at least for me, what you see the biggest price tag are the heating units on top, which in that federal handout I gave you, that was 1.5 million, and that would replace A, B, and C, the most heavily used pods, as well as the big unit. In addition to that, you got showers and water issues galore. What are you looking at?
Shaking my head no, because I just got the prices back, so you're
Is there
wrong.
even more?
Yeah.
Good.
How much?
We could probably do A, B, and C.
For 1.5.
Can't do.
And that's
But we are like, so the biggest challenge right now, and we don't have clarity right now, is the water issue. As you know, we're pursuing getting our having our own source of water up there. So we're in a catch-22 because there's things that need to be fixed. But if you put fresh things in there, like the pipes and the various, pumps, right?
I'm just letting you know.
Hey, listen, I pay attention. But you stand to ruin all that stuff right away because the water's so bad. So it's a catch-22 between what you want to fix now and what you want to wait for. And we had a great talk about it. The showers are a big concern, I know, for the sheriff. And there's a couple other ones that are smaller, but those are the big ones. But we should have some clarity within the next couple of months as far as the well and the, what it's going to take.
But the air handlers qualify for the COVID money?
Very clearly, yes.
And there's a resolution on for October, sorry, Jim. There's a resolution on for October trying to utilize some of the jail revenue money for sprinkler heads, some more kitchen equipment, and camera equipment for the facility. And then years previous, we replaced a bunch of kitchen equipment, which, let's not forget, now the facility is 25 years old. So it's starting to, that stuff is starting to age out.
It's better than older than that to get to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
True, so really it's like 75 if you're looking at it.
And dog years?
Yeah.
Sheriff, last year we had surprisingly water charges. How are we looking on that? Is there any changes in that? Do we expect?
No changes that I've been informed of from Fulton to Lord Lennon, so we should be consistent. Technically, the count compared to last year is about the same. Right now, we've got 78 in the facility. That's been as low as 55 and as high as 94.
What line of it are you under?
What's that?
What line?
That's paid out of Eric's budget, sir.
Oh, okay. So it wouldn't be in this line.
Yeah.
Eric?
I didn't hear it.
Okay, good. We're talking about the water.
Rates are going up, Bob.
Are they going up? I guess we can discuss that in your budget.
Great.
Great.
Good, Mark.
Put in for motor vehicle equipment,
Yes.
and that got cut.
Yeah, so I put in for a total of 4 cars, one for the jail, 2 marked patrol cars, and then 1 unmarked car for the investigators. There's a resolution on using jail revenue money to take the jail car right out of the budget, hopefully be able to get through that
This year.
this year.
Yeah.
Then there were 3 that I left in the budget, and I believe they left me 2 and 3.
With all the chip shortage and everything, is that a fair amount to the budget?
Well, yeah, as I said in our earlier statement, I mean, we try to ask for what we need. I have tried to be very diligent about not using any vehicles when they hit 200,000 miles. In years past, we've had some that were in my mind, inappropriate to be on the highway, especially for police users. So we have two, that's why I asked for 2 patrol cars to replace them. I have not had an issue getting them, if that's what you're asking. So far.
And the price, it would cover.
I believe so. It's very expensive to upfit these vehicles. The last time that I knew, the Dodge Charger, which is what we've been doing for patrol cars, was around $27,000. And then I budgeted 13 for upfit. And I was asked by someone about the cost of the upfit, can't we reuse the stuff over and over? Unfortunately, we're replacing old Fords with new Dodges. And as long as the manufacturer stays consistent, like when we get Dodges next time, if they're still on the market and their body style doesn't change, we can use cages, push bumpers, things like that over and over. But every time they change the body size, the petitions have to be different. So, it's, and the consoles.
There's no, as Mark was asking, there's no shortage of these vehicles, given
I have not had an experience of a shortage yet.
because so much is, computer and.
And there's some inflated costs.
Oh, yeah, you can say that again.
The question would be, you're looking to add another deputy for another road patrol. How does that affect your use of vehicles?
Well, obviously, there would be another person utilizing a vehicle, but we hope that as we continue to monitor our fleet, and Eric's men and women do a great job taking care of our fleet, as we replace these older vehicles and we consistently, each year, try to purchase 1 or 2 to keep the fleet active and going forward, that we should be fine with the vehicles we have to back that up. So right now, when there's a shift out on patrol, we still have cars in our garage. And that's in case something happens, they could grab another one and go. So I guess the answer is, right now, I would think we would be okay.
Thank you.
So Sheriff, are we getting to a better point with the vehicles?
Yes.
So that we are gonna be on target to do 2 each year? I mean, are we just slowly getting back? Is that what?
That's my goal, is to, but again, I wouldn't ask for 2 vehicles if we didn't need 2 vehicles. So I know, like I believe your thought is that we should get 2 every year to stay ahead of that curve, so that one year we don't need 4. And I understand that. But I try to evaluate the cars every budget season and look at conceivably and try to be fiscally responsible and say, okay, we're doing a budget in June, July, August, right? What are we gonna need when you order a car in January and it doesn't get put into service until May? By the time you get the car, get it upfitted, actually get it out into use. So you're almost a year away from actually utilizing a vehicle that gets approved in the budget process now. So I try to plan ahead and how many miles will be put on those vehicles that are targeted. And then Eric does a great job working with me for the auction, if we're gonna put anything in the auction, to try to recoup some money back towards the purchase of these vehicles.
What did we purchase last year? How many vehicles last year?
Oh, boy, that's a great question. I wanna say 2, 1 marked and 1 unmarked.
We purchased 1 prior to the budget. And then,
Yes. Actually, I think we purchased 2 prior to the budget and 1 in the budget. I believe that's what it was.
Is there room to do 2 in the budget this year?
Probably not. Well, there may be, but I didn't spend I didn't propose a resolution to spend every penny of that extra revenue. I did spend a lot of it.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, the sprinklers you'll see were $53,000, which is not an expense that I was hoping to encounter, but.
Yeah, before we let you go, as someone with an institutional memory, I want to commend you for your consistent efforts with respect to jail revenues. I think that's pretty special, given that you're independently elected, and the relationship between you and the legislature is strictly around the budget here. And I think you're doing a good job. I just wanted to call attention to that.
Thank you, sir.
Just have one question. How's it all?
We think well. We haven't got an update today, but she said that it had a broken wing, and earlier I mentioned, I joked that she said it had head trauma. I don't know how they knew that, but she said maybe they had only went 3/4 of the way around.
Yes. Should we be thinking in the future of maybe starting one a year of electric cars? Has that been discussed yet? It seems in the next 5 years, that's all we're gonna hear.
It has not been discussed on a police package vehicle. I'll be honest with you, I would have to research it because I don't even know if they make an electric vehicle for a police package. Eric, do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know.
I would have to research that, sir, because I don't even know. My initial thought is probably not, because I don't believe it lasts very long in comparison to police travel. Like, I don't know if you're aware, but the deputies put a ton of miles on even during the day. I mean, you cover the western zone, right? So you cover town of Palatine, town of Canajoharie, town of Minden, town of St. Johnsville. You can be in the farthest part north of the town of Palatine and get a call in the farthest part south of the town of Minden, and then back up to the northern part of the town of St. Johnsville, and then you gotta come back to Fonda to pick up something from the district attorney's office, and then back up west. I mean, they're traveling a lot, covering the
Plus, do
county.
they make them strong enough with engines that they could be chase cars? I can't imagine that they do.
I
We've got
don't
those
think
sheriff things, 500 horses or what? No, really?
I don't even know what they are. but
Electric cars.
They used to be V8s. The first Dodge Chargers we got were V8s down to V6s. But as far as horsepower, I'm not an engine guy.
I know they can outrace most cars.
What's the, I know they said they go 300 to 400 miles on a charge. What's a typical car that you're gonna use a day? Probably running 3 shifts, right?
Well, we try not to, so they work 12-hour shifts, so sometimes they run a 24-hour shift. But we try not to do that. We try to alternate the vehicles so that they run a shift, rest a shift, run a shift, rest a shift, so that they don't get beat up so bad that it deteriorates the vehicle much quicker.
I didn't know if the state's kind of directing you that way towards electric vehicles.
I don't know, but I'll check. I'll do some research to see so I can get you that answer.
They're gonna be about 3 times what a gas vehicle would be.
I'm guessing, and it's just a guess, that they do not support that for a police package, but.
If you're chasing people, go make good gas mileage.
We hope we're not chasing anyone.
They probably run well on the bike path.
But not on bike paths recently.
Certainly can sneak up on people. A little quieter. Like a golf cart.
Will your cars now do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds?
What kind of question is that? I don't know. How's that?
Good answer.
Good answer is we are unaware.
Try it on 5S on that straightaway, right in front of you.
Sure.
We don't encourage tests like that on the streets of Montgomery County.
I do appreciate it. Thank you for coming. Under Sheriff, thank you for everything that you do behind the scenes.
If there's ever any questions that come up afterwards, or you need anything, all you gotta do is call or email or ask me, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody need a break?
I'd like to go home and have dinner, but that's fine.
You're trapped like a rat.
Come on up, Eric.
Good.
Must say, I was watching the other night on Tuesday, Chairman Pep, and I heard you mention something about my veins pulling out of my neck, so I guess I'm ready.
That wasn't on camera, was it?
It sure was. That's when I turned it off.
I was just probably agreeing with somebody else who brought up the topic.
I think that's how it went down.
The boss threw me under the bus, not me. I don't know.
We weren't using that word.
Some, certain position or place you want me to begin, or you just want to fire away with the question?
Why don't you begin and then we'll go on.
I think I pretty much presented a equal budget to last year. I don't think there was very many increases in many of the lines other than what you guys usually expect. For me, as far as like light, power, gas, increase in employee salaries, which is all contractual, out of my control. Road fund, I always request the same. And accept what the county executives puts down.
What's the CHIPS handle this year, Eric?
Right now, I believe it's gonna be about the same as it was last year. I believe it was 2.9 is what we're projecting, and I've got about, right now, I think I'm currently looking somewhere around should be close to $1 million rollover combined.
Are they slamming on you? I mean, I remember one year, a couple of years ago, you brought somebody over and they told you couldn't do that anymore. Is that because they kind of stepped back on that a little?
Well, no, I mean, if you're gonna continuously roll over millions of dollars a year to build your chips, roll over up to several $1 million, there's only a matter of time when they're gonna say, well, we're gonna take from your pot and give to somebody else's pot.
So you're exhausted at one of those years? Yeah.
We exhausted it last year.
Yeah.
And I was, with the forces I have in the department, I did my best to exhaust it this year.
Good job. Are you exhausted?
Am I exhausted? I've been going since 4:30.
Eric, are we protected with fuel pricing?
No.
We're not.
We purchase off a state contract, but our prices change on a daily basis, just like the pumps do. I mean, we don't pay what you pay at the pump, but there is a state price.
Right?
So, I'm sorry?
Exclusive of taxes.
Correct.
Are we ready for questions, or are you going to hear anything else?
No, I don't, post-closure budget, I left, I think it's mirror the same as what last year's was. I think, we increased our gas line by a total of $500. I think that's all we put in, but that's a joint county venture.
Page 11, bottom line, property rent, lease, repair. You went from a budget of 2020 of 111,000 to 160. The executive budget was 150. Can you give some insight as to what drives that?
So with that budget, I just go on usually I go on a 5-year average of what we spend. We get new department heads, new elected officials. Offices need to be repainted, carpet needs to be done, ceilings are done, lighting, things like that. You never know when things are going to break, so that includes, everything we have at, the jail, annex, this building.
So you see an increase in repairs and upfitting?
Oh yeah, there's been.
That's good.
Plus, we've used some of that money we transferred to other lines to cover custodial things for COVID when we started running low on funds. We did use some of that when the buildings were closed and there wasn't a lot of repair being done. We used some of that.
Page 12, line 4425, maintenance agreements. We have a small increase over the 2021 budget of 18,000, but the previous year was 162,000. We're taking on new agreements for the recorder building, or what are the maintenance agreements? Is that like for HVAC?
Yeah, so the increase this year about I believe it's about 18,000 for this year, yeah. So the HVAC contract at the jail with the older units, I know that contract increases this year in 2022 coming up, I believe, in the neighborhood of $7,000 to $8,000, and the rest of our buildings has an increase in the neighborhood of 6,000 for our final year of contract with our vendor. And there's also some other small increases we have with
Generator, things like that.
yeah, generator maintenance, things like that, but they all add up,
So getting on from that, special recreation facility going from $30,000 2020 to $60,000 I'm assuming that's the bike path? or what-
Are you talking, is it the labor line?
Correct.
Yeah, so what we did is we just moved some money from, our hourly employees line under 1620 and moved it over to that line right off the budget because halfway through the year, we always end up putting, a transfer over to the county executive to move line from our hourly employees to that line because I've just been using our own forces to cover the bike path, where in a few years past, we had temporary employees throughout the summer, and we were funding that 30,000, so I was using 30,000 of temporary money, and I'd use another 20,000 of DPW money, so now I'm using all DPW money with no temporary employees.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just see if I had anything in the other funds. Would that be similar on page 48 to the maintenance roads and bridges?
Yes.
About $160,000 swing on that.
Yep, yeah, so there's, like I said, that's highway labor for all the workers, for all the positions we have filled, or for all the positions in the budget, including the ones that are not currently.
So some of that would represent some of the adjustments?
Yes.
On that?
And everything, I believe, from what talking with Treasurer Bowerman, everything is under that 5110, 1110 line, nothing, because we also have some hourly employee lines under snow removal and service to other governments when we go out and help snow removal for villages or New York State DOT.
See, 5,000 line 1110, hourly employees, about halfway down. Budget 2020 of about $11,000, then adopted budget the following year is 45, now it's gone down $5,000.
Correct, for snow removal.
The sidewalks.
Yeah, it's like, so that's for helping, like, when New York State DOT calls, if they need trucks doing snow removal, we help them out in St. Johnsville, different villages, Fonda, we'll provide our trucks to do snow removal, so that, those labor lines are in there to pay those guys out of that line.
Okay. On the next page, motor vehicle and equipment, can you just give us a rundown on the 75,000? You know, what, we had a discussion of what you wanted to replace and
Right, so this year, I'll go back about 3 years ago when I put the vehicle replacement, program into effect, and we purchased several new trucks. This year there are 3 trucks up, for rotation this year. So within that 75,000, I'm looking at probably in the neighborhood of each truck costing the county $6,000 to $8,000 a piece to trade them in.
because of your program.
Because of the program. There's a vehicle in there also to look at for replacement of an old van in the probation office. There's money in there for a vehicle in the district attorney's office that we handle. And with the auction that we have upcoming, we're hoping to secure enough money by the first of this month to encumber that money to next year to offset the cost of a new box truck that is
Seems like
in need of replacement.
a lot to get done with 75,000.
Well, that program works, so that by rotating those vehicles out, saves the county tremendous amount of.
What's your oldest vehicle
Light duty is probably 11 years old, 11 years old, and that vehicle will be gone this coming year.
I remember you had some real old ones for
Yeah.
a while. You got rid of all that, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's 1 or 2 left. That's about it. And the 1 or 2 that are left are the ones that have not cost the department as much in maintenance. They're probably the best of the older vehicles in the fleet. That's why we kept.
So our fleet's more up to date now than it was 4 years ago.
Absolutely, yep, there is very, very rare is to have one of our own vehicles tying up a lift so that if, when Jeff's cars come flying in through the gate and need quick service, we always have a lift available for them.
In the position, the president budget can just explain what that position is. The tech.
Senior engineering tech?
Yeah.
So that's basically, just to take care of, a lot of the loose end things in the office. That we don't get, that's tough for, myself or Dave to get to on a daily basis. The driveway permits that hang around on the desk sometimes for 2 to 3 weeks, and residents are looking for them back because we're running different areas. We will be moving into a new facility, hopefully towards the end of next year. And there's a lot of organizing that needs to go on in that office, in that engineering office, as far as records that need to be kept, refiled. Our tree program that we do on a yearly basis before we start, recognizing, which entry agreements need to be filed, and kept on hand as we're working. Any other work permits that come in to help the other departments with. Just a little extra, more hands make things a little bit easier. The other positions that I have in there, Legislator Headwell, is to replace retirees. Next year. It allows for training throughout the year.
We're kind of defund. Around 2250 technical equipment, it's at $7,000. What is that? Just roughly.
2250, under which line are you under?
3310.
3310?
Page 47.
2250. So those will be, flip over to my other. So that is a heat laminator for our sign printer.
Staying under the D fund, under 5110, 4448, construction material supplies. You requested 1,000,003 in the executive contract down to 800. Is that going to work for you?
Now that's, for the past 5 years, I request 1.3, he gives me 800,000, so. With the increase in CHIPS money that we've received, yeah, we'll make that work. That's just, kind of a joke, I guess I have with the executive. I shouldn't call it a joke. Throwing that out there, that we can use it and spend it.
And I see that your fringes are down in that, on that fund, down about 16,000. Is that due to fewer employees in that fund? Or?
That could be, I believe those numbers were usually supplied by the personnel office, so I typically don't see those numbers when they come in.
It usually is.
I would assume so.
That's all I got, thank you, Eric.
So Eric, since we're doing more with less, can we do more with less employees, or do more employees?
Can we still do less with more employees? To a certain extent, you can, but, we do, the way it gets done is we do more in certain areas, and we just concentrate on those areas and get all that, do as many roads as we can in one area instead of being spread out across the county and trying to tackle multiple things, because I try to keep at least a 5-man, preferably 6-man crew if I can, but we've been pretty much all summer 4-man crews is what we've been, and it makes it tough when you try to do things safely, and flaggers, and you got truck drivers, and, you know, so it makes it tough.
Mike and Brian.
Can you just give us a little update on how our project's going out there?
On the hill, up on the hill?
How far along are we, you know, project completion date? I know you said later in the year, but, next year, but costs.
So right now, we're currently pouring foundation walls. We do have electrical and mechanical contractors on site. Fuel islands completed, minus setting the gas pumps themselves and pulling the wire. Our cold storage facility, the concrete is set in place. We're waiting steel to be delivered, hopefully by the 1st of December. The main building, we're not entirely sure on. We keep getting conflicted dates, so that's something the county attorney and myself have been working on. We have not received hard inflation costs, escalation costs yet to date. There was pure speculation about 4 months ago in the neighborhood of $600,000 on escalation on the building. There hasn't been any further discussion on that as of yet with the building supplier. Like I said, pure speculation between myself and Leroy and the architects. We were in the neighborhood of $1 million about discussions 3-4 months ago. And that was, on top of, increased material costs. But, along with material costs and job delays comes increased cost in management and inspection. So it all goes with it, hand in hand. But we're doing the best we can to monitor everything that comes in and request for change orders. There's already been anticipated change orders that came in from contractors that we've denied. So.
Eric, when you do shared services with the townships, they dig ditches for you and things that aren't covered under the snow or the mowing contract. How do we keep track of that? Do we just
Yeah, we keep everything right in our computer system, in our log with our guys. We have codes for every town and every road they work on. So if you ask me how many hours we had on a certain town road, if we did a project, that all goes in, how much we did for Palatine, Roof, Florida, and
No, but I mean, when the town does something on a county road.
On a county road, they turn in a slip to us.
Okay. So
And that's all logged by my highway director.
And then how do we work the payment back and forth? Is it like on a
Just a shared service,
Just a shared service.
You sent me 6 trucks last week. I'll send you my paver and 3 trucks, but all material. We work for a town, the town pays for material and vice versa.
I think that's a great thing because it's why double the equipment and manpower if you don't need to.
Yeah, the town's really, being down manpower on trucks this year, doing our single seals this year, the town's really stepped up and helped us get our roads done. So when they call and need a truck or two, we just have an agreement between the director and myself. If we have something going on and the town needs us, we'll push out to tomorrow. We need to help them get things done.
Take it back 8 years.
8 years? I wasn't here.
Well, there was a time when we talked about the rationale for raising the amount of snow removal that the towns get. I see this year, the executive budget, just this modest increase of 2%, $46,000. But we talked about establishing a rationale for that. Right? And we met with some of the town highway personnel. They said they were going to keep us posted on their costs. Have they done that over the period over that?
About half of the towns have turned in for the county executive. About 50%.
And at the last meeting and discussing it with them, that was brought up and works both ways. If only certain towns are or given us the cost, how can we really have a full picture of it? And it just so happens that who gives it to us and who doesn't, there's a certain strategery there, I guess. But in discussing it, there wasn't a tolerance to expand the current structure because of the administration of it and the fact that we can't get we don't get half the towns to participate. So there was an agreement in the room that they would settle and be okay with just some increases over the next few years. They also asked to look at mowing as an issue as well. That was something that was brought up. But as of right now, they were satisfied with the tentative agreement that we passed, I think, last month.
I think it was 8 years ago, but.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, I know it was my first term here.
Okay. I've been here 5, so that was.
So, well, you were at that meeting, so maybe it's 5 years ago.
It could have been 5 years ago, or I may have been there as a supervisor down in Florida.
Nevertheless, there was going to be a rationale for any increases. So would you suggest that we have that?
Well, to me, to classify various roads based on the amount they travel, what's used on the road, and whether or not they're a drifting road, it just, as we got into talking about it and getting the detail, the momentum behind it on the town side certainly waned, and quite frankly, I was happy with just an increase that everyone agreed upon for the next couple of years.
Plus, everybody's share of sales taxes rocketed north during this same time period.
Yes, and that was.
As ours has increased, so has theirs. So they don't, you know.
And they also agreed that
I don't think anymore.
They were most appropriate to be doing that work, and there's efficiencies in doing that, and you know that we're going to do the best we can to get them to keep trying to keep up with costs.
Like with the sheriff's department, you know, a lot of these town highway supervisors are independently elected. And our relationship with them really is based on trust. They come to us with the bill, and that's that.
And our goal was to try to get a consensus, whether it was the way we discussed or to keep it the way it was. And after a lot of discussion and years of going back and forth about it, they did not continue to push that issue.
Thank you.
I also think that the service has gotten, I think, a little bit better over the last couple of years because of people taking the hand and doing the rear, you know, with the mowing and plowing and stuff. I mean, we had some difficulties with some towns.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, we have, they do a great job, you know, servicing our roads. We do, that's how you know it, but they also face, you know, employment shortages as we do, you know, so sometimes it takes, you know, a little longer for them to get around. Some towns are quicker than others, but some towns also they're not as rural as other towns, and they have residents who mow right out to the edge of the road, you know. So that helps those towns out tremendously, where you take other towns, like out in the town of Root area or Kansas area, where you don't have as many residents mowing their lawn to the edge of the highway. Creates more work for them, you know, so it's a challenge.
Anything else for her?
Well, just to finish up, so where's the $40,000 increase from?
So we passed a resolution last month and have, I think, a 2-year at 2% each year.
No, that is 2%, I know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it was, we simply negotiated the rate of increase. And they gave me, we sat down in a room and they gave me, you know, what they wanted and the reasons for, and listed various cost increases and labor increases. And then we were able to reach a consensus on what the percentage should be.
That's enough questions for Steve Sweet to speak about that. Thank you.
Good job.
And we have to vote.
As always.
Thanks, Mark. Take it easy in your shirt.
See, the amendments is right now.
Well, he had his hand up first, so that was like, oh, here it comes.
He's already made his changes.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric.
So it's gone real easy to just ask each department to cut 500,000, and once you do that, the rest of the time it goes real easy.
Yes, cut mine.
Oh, okay,
You say 5 or 500?
$5, I can cut $5.
You want to start with the?
Sure. Well, start off with thanks to all of you for your support over the years, actually. I'd like to say thanks to my colleagues who presented before me, because without their support, partnerships with them, we wouldn't be able to do our job. So all of them have been very helpful, except for Nicole. Nicole is really, she's a pain.
I mean.
She used to work with me, so I can say.
Voice, Mike.
But I'm in trouble now. No, honestly, she has done great work, but all of them have done great work. Jeff with his transports and all the unique situations that we find ourselves in with clients, and families and situations. And Eric helping us with Benner Road, he's been very good. His team down there, we've watched the demolition go through, so things are really working very well in the county. I talked to commissioners around the state, and not everybody has the relationships that we have, with our partners. And I'm really thankful for what we have. I think we can all be proud of that. So this year, I think what's reflected in our budget is what we see, coming at us in the rest of 21 and 22. Is there's a lot of impact on federal legislation, which is going to cause us to really look at our 4E funds, because the state feds have told us we can't use congregate care anymore, and when we do, it has to be justified. It requires a lot of court visits, and if we don't get it right, we lose the 4E funding for that case for eternity. So we just lose it, and we don't want that to happen. We understand how important it is. So that's one of the big things that we've been working with the services team and Jess for a couple of years now, preparing for it. It just started last month, so we're just getting our feet wet. The impact of the federal stimulus has shifted our case numbers around a little bit, almost to where they artificially seem suppressed. For example, our Wheels to Work program, which we've had for many years, which actually gives a card to a person who's found a job and is maintaining that job. We give them a card. They get to keep it as the year goes by. Nobody's applied for that program because nobody's looking for work. So that money sits unused, and that's just one snapshot of some of our other bigger caseloads where the federal stimulus has not helped us. It's helped families. It looks like in some cases it would cure poverty, which, believe me, is not the case. So that's some of the things that we'll continue to struggle with as long as COVID continues. The impact of the eviction moratorium, which is supposed to be lifted on January 15th. Nobody believes it's going to happen. Nobody believes that they're going to evict people in the middle of the winter. So we expect that to continue on to probably into the spring or even the early summer. That's something we have to assume. We also don't know where COVID's going, so those things are still kind of hanging in the balance. We've seen a huge increase in homeless individuals, which are safety net clients, 71% of the local budget. We saw it over 400 last year. Our hotels are filled. We are looking at new strategies to expand our shelter, which is probably the right way to go. But we also have impact from other counties who are using our hotels, particularly for offenders. These, because of docks, your Department of Corrections have released people, has released people, prisoners to because of COVID, and they're now on county. And, it's a big impact. Something we're not used to. Homelessness used to be a kind of thing that happened in the winter. At least when I first became commissioner, we didn't start talking homeless until November, and now we talk it year round. So that's a big change.
some of the trends that we're seeing in the services world is that we're seeing very young, very violent, and very aggressive children between the ages of 7 and 11. We've had a string of cases, and this isn't just Montgomery County, it's happening around the state, it's happening around the U.S., but it's really put an impact on rural counties in trying to find placements for these young people. We've called 20 placement agencies on a couple of kids just recently. Nobody willing to take them because of their behavior. That really puts an impact on our staff because it's very worrisome on how we're going to solve these problems. Looking for placements, guardianships for people who are very ill, okay, or they're addicted, or they're mental health issues and addicted, are also becoming a problem. We've done several guardianships where they come into the care of the commissioner and they stay forever. They really do. Guardianships usually don't get reversed. So once you take them, they're really there, and the staff has to visit them, they have to maintain them, their finances, sometimes even where they live, their property. They're on the increase. The other thing that's happened to us is that our staff retention has gone down. We've lost 4 caseworkers just in the last 2 months. That's a lot, and especially 3 of them were male caseworkers. And we really need a balance of female and male caseworkers for our caseload. We lost 4 of them, and we also have a retirement coming up. We have a couple of retirements, but one is a 35-year employee who will really be a loss to the county when he goes. So the picture is we try to look at the 22 budget with these things in mind, with these assumptions that we think are real. So I will leave it at that. Welcome to answer any questions.
Commissioner, the executive has indicated to us, he's gone through the budget, that he's increased some positions. Many of job titles of which, a few of them at least, are in your world, caseworker, case supervisor, because of the inability to retain employees. Do you think these proposed increases are going to help you staff your casework team?
I think it will. But I'm also concerned about the current state of being an employer these days, trying to find people for any job across the board. I always thought that overstaffing made sense. We bring in more, and hopefully we get to a point where we have what we need. So I think that that's my belief, is that we ramp up our recruiting and get the right people in. I think that's important too, is to make the right selection.
We did learn last week that there are some advantages to working here after people leave. The work week is a little shorter, right? 35 versus 40 hours, the commute, things of that nature. So with these enhanced salary positions, we're hoping it works. Just hope it works for you.
Right. We've seen a trend where we've seen many people come back. So they've gone to Saratoga, they've gone to other even state entities, and they've come back within a year. That's a good sign, but we'd rather them not leave.
Right.
So I was going to say, Nicole and I we're working on a state work group. We're looking at, continuous recruiting, and, ideas about maintaining, ideas on how to market. That county government is actually a good thing. It's not a bad place to work. So we see some success people coming back. I guess that's a sign that we are, like you said, we're doing the
I
right
think
thing.
Nicole's ready to help you with that too. She's already, putting stuff together, I believe, to try and get people to stay. Talk about the advantages of staying here.
If I could just comment on that.
Sure.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I think the world of Nicole. But as the commissioner said, when we lose, say, 4 caseworkers, who on average have 30 to 4 cases per worker, the other workers have to take up the slack. So now you have a caseworker with 30 to 40 cases in addition to taking up the slack for the 4 who have left. And that's a continuing issue every week, every month. So that's one of the reasons why, as the commissioner said, if we had more caseworkers on board, we could handle that easier.
And, of course, the state's constantly looking at us in regard to quality casework. And, you know, we just had a recent audit in regard to, you know, what we do in the way of safety planning and things of that nature. So, and I thought we came out fairly well.
It's funny how this tide swings, though. I remember a couple of years ago, maybe, I think we eliminated 300,000 worth of unused positions in your cost center, right? Wasn't that about right, Matt? You know, and now the pendulum is swung in another direction, you know, where we don't have enough of them. So, unfortunately, hopefully that works. Thanks.
Right. In the general fund, under 6010 or 4431 professional services. Looks like you requested 44,192 and the executive bumped it up to 68,942, which is almost $25,000. What is in that line for professional services? Yeah.
With Family First, in trying to avoid placing children into congregate care, one of the things that we need to do if we do place a child into congregate care is to have them go before what is called a qualified individual. And that is estimated to be about $2,000 just to go before that person. So I took the the average from 16, 17, and 18, so pre-COVID numbers for what our children going into congregate care is as new children with that $2,000 number, and that was accounts for the difference. The reason why it was after the request was because I did not get any numbers from institutions willing to do it until after I had already submitted the request.
Okay, so the executive budget is actually your request.
So Matt and Sean and I and the five of us did sit down and we had a thorough discussion of it.
This is an impact of the federal legislation I mentioned when I opened up. That's requiring us to not use the congregate care, but to go through the qualified individual anytime we have to use it. And we just started on the 29th of September, and we already have cases, so it's hit us already.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand these things, so that's why I'm asking the questions, not that I think is wrong or right, I'm just trying to educate myself.
And the implications of that, there's implications on 4B, because we have 5 days to have a petition, provide a petition to courts. We have 30 days for this QI to take place, and the court has to rule on it in 60 days. If that doesn't happen, we don't meet those time periods. As the commissioner said, we lose money for the duration of that case.
All right, and then going on a few lines, 4438 miscellaneous service. That also, I'm assuming that might be the same scenario where the department request was 372,000 and the executive budget is 475, which is almost $103,000 difference. Is that similar?
It is, yep. That's the for fraud, the sheriff's deputy.
Okay. And then traveling down a little bit farther, 4459, the computer software. What are we purchasing for 112,000?
That is the Northwoods. Last year, it didn't get into the 2021 budget before Northwoods was committed to. So I included there, I believe, out of that it's 108 is their fee every year.
Okay. And then 2 down from that, 4462.
TANF services, yes. That increase is specifically attributable to the home run program that we run through Berkshire for each of the schools. It's a preventative program where we have Berkshire goes in with a caseworker. They have a caseload of 5 to 8 families of children to prevent these children from, if we see truancy issues, so that they might not get further down and become children we have to place. This even though it looks like a massive increase, I've accounted for it in our revenues because 62% of it is reimbursed through the state, and then the remaining 38% is reimbursed to us through the schools that choose to participate.
Great. That's through Berkshire?
That is correct.
Let's see, it looks like daycare is up about 107,000, is that?
That is correct. So with the child care block grant, the state allocates amounts for us to use, and that from what they have given us, 909,324 is the exact number that they've said. If we spend that amount, that's what our allocation is.
Okay. And it looks like Medicaid is down.
Yes, so that one is a bit more complex. I tried not to take into account the CARES, there's a part of that the EF map that is CARES funding, and I tried not to include that for next year because it is a single year item where they are giving us additional money that we don't have to pay out of pocket. But if you want, I have that calculation here as well.
Thank you, that's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I got one question. Earlier you were talking about the homeless. I wonder how your department tracks that or gets that information.
We use the Homeless Management Information System, which is actually a product of HUD. We are a part, Montgomery County is a part of the COC, which is the Continuum of Care, and we use the HMI system to track. We also use it to place individuals through coordinated entry. So we look at somebody that's maybe been chronically homeless, maybe across several counties. We move that person to the top of the list, address the issues, and get them into housing. We're new to it. We're about a year into using the system, but we're a new COC also. We've only been a COC for about 2 years. Yeah, it's actually helping, I think.
Commissioner, a couple of years ago, maybe last year, the year before, we had a discussion about the foster program and court system, and there was a large amount of money that was, we were trying to get reimbursed. How did we make out with that?
Are you referring to 4E?
4E. 4E.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing really good with 4E. However, Family First, this federal legislation has changed things. We don't know what it's going to look like. We're concerned about that. It's one of the big pieces. I wrote against this law 3 years ago because of this, because I don't think we can manage these timeframes with the court. You have a one-judge court, right? And if you don't get there within 5 days or 10 days or 30 days, you don't get on the calendar, you could lose that money. And it's very important. So I said we did very well. We had one person that was doing it. She was just focused on 4E reimbursement, and now we are paying very close attention to, the federal laws now.
So was that keeping current, or was there retroactive? I thought we were after like $3 million of retroactive money at one time.
I think at one point we did go back and get money from the past.
We got about 2.5. This year, we've generated $726,784 in funds.
So you would consider that good? I'm not being critical, I'm asking.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything?
Yes. Can you give us a little insight into raise the age? And the school printout we got here showed our budget this year was $11. Is that a misprint?
That is not.
Okay.
It's $10.75 actually, to be exact.
Oh, and you rounded it up.
Over budget.
It was for one fee to the sheriff's department for transport. With Raise the Age, I mean, you can speak to the programmatic portion of it a bit more, but we go back and forth with Lorraine, with the state, and they give us guidance on how they would like us to budget, how many children they want us to estimate for, etc. We were holding firm at 5 children for many years, but I found that wasn't what we were actually seeing. So last year we had reduced it to the 297 to account for only 2 of those children, should we get them. Unfortunately, we don't know whether we're gonna get 2, 5, 10. All of that money though, because of our agreement with the state and their input into it, would be reimbursed, anything we spend out of that.
Our experience with the raise of age is that the first day the law went into effect, we got two kids. And since that time, we haven't had any. The reality is that lots of times the police departments just bring them home to their parents as opposed to having us go. Anybody else have anything else? All right. Nothing? Appreciate it. Anything else?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sean, what are we at for tipping fees in the county now?
Yeah.
What are the tipping fees in the county?
85. 250 or is it 80? And I don't know what.
I think we
Or is
went
it
up from
85?
72 to 82, and then we went up a few more dollars.
Might be 85, 86.
85, I think.
It's 87.
The reason I asked is because I went to Scarlet County yesterday. They're at 88.
You got county and county, right? You were paid in county. They have a separate.
No, it was their in-county, it was for in-county stuff.
They're out of county, right? I believe it's 88.
They're probably trying to let us.
Their out of county tipping fee is actually higher than our tipping.
They told me it was for I was delivering the stuff to someone from Cold Skills. They said that was great.
How did it possibly do it for $38? They still have to deliver it somewhere.
They have a contract with
And so what does cell charge? I guess that would be the question.
Our next meeting Tuesday, we have a public hearing, and we will have the straw votes. So make sure that you give your sheets to Cheryl by Friday so that she can get those things all typed up, and we'll go over them on Tuesday night. Does anyone else have anything else? Take that motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.